Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto was taken by Yoda and trained to become a Jedi Knight. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Hangar Base. Fox and the others had infiltrated the base as well, and had overheard one of the droids mentioning that a bunch of clones had been captured. It seems like Siri's forces had been captured and were being held prisoners. Think General Tachi doing is fine? Storm questioned Fox as the two made their way to the holding area. Don't worry, your wife will be just fine. Fox joked, causing Naruto to do a double take and Storm to almost trip over his own feet. For the last time, I do not have a crush on her. Storm insisted as Fox chuckled. Sure you don't. Your eyes definitely aren't affixed to her backside while she's walking out of a room. Fox replied, only to get smacked on the helmet, forcefully, by the saber hilt of a displeased Naruto. His stress level had reached its peak, and he wasn't in the mood to even be around jokes. That was also his sister they were talking about. Be quiet. Or did you two not notice the hundreds of thousands of droids beneath us? Naruto had been mostly silent after they disengaged combat and made their way into the building. They hadn't encountered any droids since, and Naruto had realized why when they noticed all of them were guarding the hangar bay. This whole operation was built as a trap for us, and me specifically. Everything, from the crash to the prisoners, was meant to try and make me lose my head and act rashly. They want me to go try and save those prisoners. They know my habits almost more than I do. The separatists have been studying me. I don't know whether or not to feel honored or repulsed. Naruto grumbled out. He was not in the best of moods. He'd lost plenty of friends in the crash, and he had no idea how Siri was faring on her own without any troops to support her. Make sense? They also gave you just enough misinformation to think you could succeed with a small force. When did you figure that out? Fox agreed with this conclusion, but Naruto wasn't so pleased over it. I knew it the moment I saw the size of this compound. But the existence of the trap alone doesn't explain how they knew I would be the one leading the expedition. They know I was injured on Renvar, and they shouldn't know about my healing capabilities. The only one who knows about it are Naruto paused. He'd asked himself this very thing countless times over the past hour, and no matter what answer he came up with, he didn't like it. He thought back to what Obi-Wan had told him on the negotiator over Renvar, that someone had been feeding misinformation and reporting their deployments, and that it had to be coming from the officers of the Third Systems Army or Republic High Command. But this was a black op, which Naruto now figured was to prevent anyone from looking for the missing legions, and the only ones who knew about it were. No matter how you look at it, there has to be a mole somewhere within Republic High Command feeding the separatists information, and they also misdirected us here. Unprepared and undermanned. They've been doing this for a while, too. I hadn't figured it out until now because it could all have been unfortunate coincidence, but now I'm certain. You don't lay out a trap this personal without having insider info. The Sis is trying to assassinate me, and they're using a mole in High Command to do it. I can't say I blame them considering our track record. Naruto had almost pieced the entire puzzle together, but he couldn't just storm into the High Command office and start investigating everyone as an alleged traitor. You're forgetting other common factors, but Iafang chimed in, and a surge of anger briefly welled up within Naruto, but he calmed it quickly. There's no way Siri would ever do anything like that, and Ross came of his own accord and didn't know the mission details until after we arrived on Kamino. This trap would take time to set up, and the time it took for us to get here wouldn't enough. Second of all, he wouldn't put himself in danger like this. He might have become less of a selfish ass, but he still is one. Besides, if Ross was a mole and wanted info on me, he would have met me with a much friendlier attitude. I suppose it's still possible, but I don't want to think about this anymore. We have to focus on what's in front of us. The Seps want me to try and free the clones they captured, probably so they can surround us with the Seer army when we do. So what do we do instead? Naruto quizzed the three captains. Storm raised his hand first. He was alarmingly excited to answer that question. Lo set army to smithereens. Storm postulated, and Naruto's familiar smirk came to life. It seems talking through it managed to alleviate the stress of the situation. Correct. Now watch and learn, boys. I have a few new tricks to show you. Naruto said before leaping off the catwalk and into the middle of the droids' formation. The droids all slowly turned and just stared. Hello there. Naruto greeted with a warm smile as green energy began to crackle in the palm of his hand. Hello. A B1 captain responded enthusiastically, going as far as giving Naruto a brief wave. He was pleased to even be acknowledged, but that feeling of recognition faded when he did a double take. Wait a minute, aren't you the B1 began to question. General Naruto Uzumaki, Jedi Knight of the Republic. Yeah, that's me. Naruto continued to smile as the green energy intensified. Oh, you gonna kill all of us, aren't you? The B1 responded, very disappointed with the turn its day had taken. It didn't even bother raising its blaster in self-defense. Yep. Naruto threw out his hand and launched a torrent of green lightning that fried the circuits of every droid in range. He began a sweeping 360-degree arc, clearing out several thousand of the tightly packed droids in one fell swoop before activating his dark blue lightsaber. In the rafters, the captains of the 497th all had their jaws dropped under the helmets. He couldn't do that before, could he? Storm asked, completely dumbfounded. Definitely not. He should teach all of us how to do that. Fang was very intrigued by the prospect of being able to shoot emerald lightning from his hands. That's electric judgment, so unless you boys suddenly become force sensitive, you're out of luck. Fox replied with a large degree of snark. Seems that he finally learned his master's original technique. Well boys, we'd better get down there before he gets himself killed. Yes sir, the clones responded before attaching their grappling hooks to the rafters and descending into the chaos below, blasters ablazing. Sys Command Center. King was having a much easier time making his way to the command center. He had taken the first company as a formality to spread out and cause as much mayhem in the base to divide the droids up. Thankfully, most of the droids were on the outside, and many more were no active. Rounding a corner, he saw the droid commander center. Close the blast doors. King heard the tactical droid as he broke into the fastest sprint he could manage. The blast doors started to close as King quickly jumped through the small gap and rolled to a stop. Looking up, he saw a B-1 battle droid. You're under arrest. The droid ordered, but King only chuckled. These poor clunkers didn't know they had just sealed their fate, literally, by closing those blast doors. He drew his twin pistols in a flash and began blasting all of the droids, quick and easy. After he fried the circuit board of the tactical droid commanding everything, he moved to take control of the command center, reopening the blast doors that were trapping him in. He then moved to the comms relay and began repositioning the communications satellites for a clear transmission to Kamino. It would take some time for the relay to realign, so he started to shut down the base's auto-turret defenses at the operations desk. With Ventress and her 3 companions were content to walk to their hangar destination, albeit at a brisk pace. Ventress knew that she alone was no match for Naruto in direct and prolonged combat, and there was still a chance that the 4 of them together would fail, but she had roughly 700,000 droids at her disposal in this space, and she planned to use them. The torn and tattered 497th would inadvertently force the overly compassionate Naruto into a situation that would make it child's play to wipe them all out. Ventress began to hear a low hum, and she looked outside to notice the comms dishes were changing position. She looked up and noticed that the auto turrets had also been rendered immobile. Damn it, Uzumaki must have snuck into the command deck behind us. Clever bastard. Ventress spat out. She looked back to the acolytes and tried to think of a way to salvage the situation. She made a quick decision, hoping it wasn't made in too much haste. I will go back to stall Uzumaki. Move quickly and execute those officers, then meet up with me in the command center. She ordered. The 3 kept running forward as Ventress turned on her heel and launched herself with the force back the way she came. Engineering Bay. Ross had finally managed to take a breath once he and Siri had reached the engineering bay. The place was sparsely guarded by just a handful of B-1s. He found an unused storage room and left Siri there, hoping she would be safe while he completed their mission. As Ross sleuthed his way past the droids, he finally reached the shield relay and took a metal cylinder from his belt. Igniting the purple blade he borrowed from Siri, he rammed it directly into the control panel. As the electrical systems went haywire, Ross felt a bit of a shock, but it was nothing compared to what he'd experienced earlier. Ross used the confusion to slip past most of the droids once again, only having to blast a few curious onlookers that saw him leaving. As he jogged back into the hull, he stopped dead in his tracks. The Zabrak Sith acolyte had caught up with them, and her bloodied face was contorted in pure rage. I'm here to pay you back for what you did to my pretty face, and for what you did to Samar. The Zabrak spat out, her words seething with even greater hatred than her face. If anything, I merely rectified its flaws. You're much cuter when you're angry. Ross quipped back. And your little will looks so much cuter when she's screaming as I slowly carve her flesh off piece by piece. I'll take care of after I've dealt with you. She's in that old storage room nobody uses, right? Ross winced at her last words and quickly damned himself when the Zabrak smiled in return, her theory confirmed. He'd taken the bait and given away Siri's location. Now you die, pest. She screamed bloody murder as she charged forward with her blade held high. Ross saw right though the one-dimensional attack, and brought up Siri's lightsaber in the nick of time. The Zabrak had expected a bisected Ross to crumple to the floor, not this. Surprised? Ross asked with a grin. The woman wasn't so much amused as she was enraged. This annoying prick was costing her way too much time. That blade won't give you the power to defeat me, Cyclops. Ross scoffed at the unoriginal insult. The Zabrak launched into a series of broad and powerful saber strikes that were meant to intimidate rather than harm. He found the lightsaber considerably more difficult to use than a vibropinner stun baton, but Ross fell back on his time on the streets. He remembered using blunt weapons to beat the hell out of the slaving bastards that sold his parents and ruined his life. He also recalled the basic melee training that Republic security went through all the same, and managed to defend himself somewhat adequately, at best. No, but it does let me fight you on even terms until my reinforcements arrive. Ross bluffed. He was definitely having trouble, but Ross kept up the arrogant facade as his opponent realized she wasn't instilling as much fear in him as she'd intended. Her attacks started becoming serious attempts on his life, but Ross felt himself getting the hang of Ciri's lightsaber, improving his defense as she stepped up her attack. Holding a lightsaber doesn't make you a Jedi, you scum. The Zabrak roared. After just a minute of this, the girl was completely furious, and Ross knew if he just pushed her buttons a little more. Oh my, that's the closest thing you've done to permanent damage the entire time we've known each other. The last thing I want is to be compared to the likes of Uzumaki. Ross feigned anguish and raged the Zabrak more, causing her to launch forward in blind rage. Ross raised his blade to defend, but deactivated it at the last moment before stepping aside. The Zabrak stumbled over her own feet as she tried to correct herself, but ended up falling to the floor. Ross took the opening to make a run for the supply room. He was pleasantly surprised to see an awakened Ciri resting against the wall. Ross, you're back, what happened? She felt totally lost after being unconscious for the past 10 minutes or so. Shield down, Sith woman chasing us, time to run. Ross spoke as quickly as possible, grabbing Ciri by the arm, before she could finish asking him to repeat himself. She yelped in a bit of pain, but he assumed that pain was preferable to death. He pulled Ciri close to him in an effort to take weight off her leg. It was only a few minutes until Ross heard the sound of footsteps catching up behind him. The Zabrak girl had almost caught up with them. Ross had to reach around Ciri's waist to grab his blaster and fired a few rounds, forcing her to back off a bit. Blaster fire isn't going to slow a Sith down for long. Ciri notified him rather snidely. I know, but I haven't any better ideas at the moment. Care to contribute for once? Ross retorted with his own snide remark. Ciri hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Hand me your blaster, I'll be fine on my own for a second. Ross complied after firing another series of blasts at their pursuer. Ciri immediately felt pain surge up her leg as Ross stopped supporting her, but she soldiered on, opening the blaster's power cell compartment and messing with the settings. Okay, I'm done. Shoulder please. Ciri immediately latched back onto Ross's shoulder, feeling the weight of the world leave her leg. Toss it, she said. Ross hesitated for only a second. He began running backwards for a moment, throwing the blaster full force. Certainly enough, the Zabrak followed Ciri's prediction and made the mistake of slicing it in two. The power cell immediately ruptured, and the resulting explosion engulfed an entire section of the hallway. The flame was rapidly catching up to the two of them. Ross thought quickly as he took Ciri's blade from his belt and cut into a wall panel, sealing the blast doors behind them. Finally having another moment of respite, Ross took the opportunity to apologize. Sorry. Borrowed it without asking, he said, handing back the saber as Ciri smiled. She didn't say anything, she only chuckled between pants. Hey guys. I know you're probably tired and all, but would you mind letting us out? Ciri and Ross looked to one another, confused, before realizing that a third voice was present. The two of them looked down a hallway to see rows of cells filled with thousands of captured and injured clones. She saw none other than Flash waving at the two of them with a cheerful smile, eager to be released from his holding cell. In the command center, the comms dishes had finally aligned, and King took notice on a display panel that the shield had been dropped. Ciri must have finally come though. He went to the comms station and began his broadcast. This is CC-01-1293 of the 497th, sending a pair level 1 emergency signal. We are stranded on a dwarf planet near the Laredo size. King was forced to stop as he ducked and rolled to avoid the saber flying towards him. He quickly turned to the offending party and looked up at his enemy, his heart getting a brief sinking feeling. Trying to call your little friends, Commander. Ventress mocked as King narrowed his eyes. I had hoped to find your general here, but I'll settle for killing you instead. King responded with a come here motion, causing Ventress to snarl at his disrespect. Unsheathing his Vibrocknives and quickly going on the offensive. One thing he had learned from sparring with Naruto and Ciri was that when it came to fighting force-sensitive beings, it was to keep them on the defensive to ensure they didn't use their force abilities too much. For Ventress, King's speed proved to be a surprise as he was already upon her, forcing her to defend. However, she was once again caught off guard as he deflected her saber with remarkable power, and hucked his arm and twisted her shoulder out of socket, causing her to scream in pain and drop the saber she was holding in that hand, before he delivered a very hard punch to her face, sending her into the wall hard. She began to reach out with the force to pull him back towards her, but she was greeted with his helmet impacting her undefended face, disorienting her. How is this possible? Ventress thought to herself in outrage. She was the leader of Dooku's acolytes, and he was nothing more than a damn clone. She took a moment to relocate her shoulder, grimacing from the sharp pain. After a brief respite, she summoned her saber back into her hand and looked up at her target, once again at the controls, sending their distress signal in another chunk. Letting out a war cry, Ventress charged at King, forcing him away from the controls again. Anticipating her moves, King used his spinning momentum to get on her side, and land a few strikes on her flank, to keep her off balance. Ventress was not amused. Communications Room, Topoka City, Kamino. Ahsoka had spent the last few hours causing a bit of gleeful mayhem against the Republic security forces present on Kamino, dyeing their uniforms her and Naruto's favorite orange color, and she had even broken into the armor manufactory and messed with the color cartridges. She really hoped the 649th enjoyed their pink striped armor. For now, though, she was content to laze about in the comms room on her datapad. The place was usually pretty empty, but now it was completely silent after she mind-tricked the two clones officers to go on an extended break. She ignored most of the incoming transmissions, as they were typically just a bunch of military jargon she didn't understand, but all of that changed when a series of red lights in the room lit up in response to a pair level 1 order. She immediately turned her attention to the incoming signal, and tried to isolate it as best she could. CC-01-1293 of the 497th sending a pair level 1 emergency signal. We are stranded Larator system encountering tremendous separatist aggression. Any Republic ships in the vicinity please provide search and rescue at the following coordinates 25 to 35. Ah damn it. Ahsoka didn't recognize the voice, but she did recognize two things. One being the 497th Legion, which was the name of Naruto's personal troops. The second thing she recognized was the hum of a lightsaber, and the distinct whine of vibratic weaponry, as well as a few clashes between the two. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided to oust herself by making an emergency announcement over the POS system. Simulation Room, Topoka City. Shakti stood in the observer platform, watching the new squad of Clone Commando finalize their training. She was truly impressed by their independence and complete dominance in combat. Well done, Sergeant. I think the squad is ready for field assignment. Shakti congratulated their trainer, a short graying man near his 60s. He wore sand gold Mandalorian body armor, and always smiled tersely. Just trying to do right by my boys, man. And please, call me Cal. He responded with the same warmth he always did. He was nothing like the other drill sergeants and bounty hunters that had been hired to train the clones. He always looked upon them as his sons, or boys as he so often called them. He was saddened that their contract had expired, and the Senate had not elected to renew it. I'll try to remember it, Cal. Shakti smiled back. She was about to observe the next group when the simulation disappeared in response to the emergency PA announcement. Hi, uh-oh, darn, how am I supposed to know if this thing's even on? Shakti immediately recognized the voice even through all the feedback and excessive background noise of the announcer fiddling with the controls. Hi. Hello. This is Ahsoka Tano. I'm calling for Master Shakti. Could you come to the communications rooms, please? I think Nair might be in trouble. Thank you. Friend of yours? Cal asked, barely suppressing his chuckle. Unfortunately, Shakti droned in response. Communications room. So you're saying you just happened to be in the communications room when we received a pair level 1 distress signal from the 497 Marshal Commander? Shakti questioned her fellow Togruta, not believing her made-up story about the comms officers asking her to monitor the room while they went on a short bathroom break. Ahsoka only nodded in response to avoid exposing her missive further. He said they were in danger on a moon. Dwarf planet, technically. Ahsoka corrected. Right, dwarf planet in the Larator system. Ahsoka nodded again, and Shakti turned to Cal. As a member of the Jedi Council and a general of the Republic, would I be allowed to commandeer the Kaminoan Defense Fleet in an emergency? Cal simply shrugged in response. He was an instructor, not a military officer. I guess it would be best to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Naruto is invaluable to the Republic, and leaving him and King to die would be quite unfortunate. Cal, could you please issue an emergency order to prepare the fleet for a short-term search and rescue? Shakti tried her best to conceal her emotions, but she would have taken the fleet regardless. Naruto was her temporary Padawan after all, and she wasn't about to let him die. Cal could tell Shakti had more than just mutual respect for this Naruto. I can do anything, ma'am. It will take a bit of time to prep the fleet, though. Hangar bays, with Naruto and the 497th. Naruto and the 497th had managed to fight their way through the droid formations, and the only viable vessel that they could find that would fit all of the survivors was a hard cell transport. Still, it was a ways off and capturing it would require much fighting. Secure the line. Naruto shouted, pointing towards the hard cell transport. The men of the 497th obliged as they focused their assault on clearing the path towards the transport. Naruto spearheaded the assault as he deflected incoming blaster fire away from them. Sphira shouted words of encouragement as he fired his blaster rifle at some droids. Go. Go. Fox shouted, firing away with his DC-15 as he ran across the vast hangar bay area. A squad of clones followed with a long flanking maneuver to get behind a wall of droids. Naruto hastened his assault to keep the attention of the droids on him, as Fox's squad kept pushing. Almost there. Naruto muttered to himself as he kept on deflecting blast after blast. The droid's position soon collapsed, and much of the incoming fire had ceased as King and his men managed to disable it. Secure the ship. Naruto ordered as his men quickly surrounded the ship before a group of engineers quickly went to work. They had captured the ship, now they would have to get it to fly, and that was where the bad news kicked in. Sir, this thing is going nowhere. One of the clone engineers stated as Naruto raised an eyebrow. As he turned to see more droids entering the hangar bay area, a lot of them. Why is that? Naruto questioned as the engineer pointed above around the transport, causing Naruto to look up and realize the problem. Those magnetic locks have got the transport locked down. We need to disable them before we can do anything. He replied as Naruto nodded as he observed the battlefield. Even with all their efforts, it won't be enough. Naruto thought with a frown. The droids were simply too many and more were on their way. It would be a bloodbath from which the 497th would not survive. Cover me. Naruto ordered the engineer, who saw Naruto sit down and began to meditate. The engineer knew what his general was doing and nodded as he quickly kept an eye out for any would-be attackers. As he was doing so, he felt his vision sharpen, as he saw everything clearly, as if everything was in slow motion. He felt like he could take on anything and come out on top. Tell everyone to hold their positions around the transport. I'll take care of the locks. Naruto spoke as the engineer nodded. Naruto saw the engineer run off as he quickly squatted down before jumping up towards the upper levels. Battle meditation had become second nature for him, and he had truly become the most proficient user of it in the history of the Order. He had done so to ensure that the 497th stood a fighting chance against the tens of thousands of droids still coming their way, though he did have to leave them to disable the locks. Together, brothers. Here they come. Spear shouted as he opened at the incoming droids. His brothers followed suit as they let loose a barrage of blaster fire at the droid army before them, as more and more of them poured into the hangar bay area. The incoming blaster fire moved so slow for them that they were easily able to dodge it, and their accuracy had become far greater, allowing them to engage the droids further out. Battle meditation were the thoughts of all clones who had experienced this before. This was quite possibly the greatest weapon of their general. They would not let this chance Naruto provided for them to go to waste. They would hold their position, even if it meant they had to die for it. Cell block, with Ross and Siri. Are you guys okay? Siri questioned Blitz and the others who nodded at her. We're fine, General. The field hospital was overrun, and the survivors were rounded up and captured. Blitz replied. They had set out to free the others, but ended up being captured after fighting that Sith. Seems like the 644th is here as well. Ross stated as he began to unlock more cells down the hall. However, as he opened the final cell, he was brutally pushed back by an invisible force, along with plenty of the freed clones. Damn it. Siri cursed as she saw who it was that attacked them, and it was that same Zabrak, though she was heavily burned and beyond pissed. Siri would have moved to defend the others, but she stumbled due to her injuries. Seeing that she wouldn't make it in time, she saw Clone, the same clone captain of the 644th, that had stayed behind to cover them, try to defend the rest. He was setting his rifle to rapid fire when it was suddenly ripped from his hands. Oh no, you don't. The acolyte stated between enraged as she let loose a torrent of electricity at the clone captain, who screamed and writhed in pain. After a good few seconds electrocution, the acolyte threw the captain's corpse across the hall and into one of the many rooms. Now then. The acolyte turned to face Siri, who grimaced at the thought of fighting the acolyte with her wounds still throbbing. Still, with sheer willpower and some sort of swell in the force emboldening her, she managed to stand up once more, ready for battle. Raising her saber, she held back the acolyte's strike, who enraged kept on attacking and attacking. Siri winced in pain with each attack further straining her broken wrist. For as long as she managed to hold out, she ultimately found herself being unable to defend herself against the acolyte for more than a few minutes, who finally broke her defenses, as Siri's grip on her saber weakened, causing it to fall out of her hand. Smirking, the acolyte once again pushed, sending Siri flying into a wall, unconscious once again. Time to die, Jedi. The acolyte smirked as she slowly began to walk towards the Jedi. Oh, shut up already. She heard as she turned around. Her eyes widened as she saw the clone she had fried standing a few feet before her, his face covered in spider-like burns from the lightning. He was standing steadfast with a plasma thrower in hand. The acolyte was quite literally shaking in fear and disbelief. She had pelted him with her strongest force lightning. The power she used would have killed even a Jedi. You're just a clone. Nothing more than a product of a test tube experiment. You should be dead. She hurled insults at him as the scarred captain narrowed his eyes as he lifted up the weapon he was holding, which caused the acolyte's eyes to widen even more. She wouldn't be able to deflect that with her lightsaber. The name's Charcoal, bitch. The newly dubbed Captain Charcoal snarled as he quite literally fired up the weapon, completely engulfing the acolyte in flame, hearing her screams in agony as she burned alive. For good measure, Charcoal pulled the trigger again. The acolyte's screams intensified as the fire burned her lungs and throat, before she could scream no more, and Simple rolled around trying to put out the flame, before coming to a halt. Now all that remained was a barely recognizable husk of burnt flesh, and even that was being slowly reduced to mere ashes. And that was for calling me a test tube experiment, he said as he dropped the weapon and moved to assist the general. Are you okay, General? He questioned Siri as she continued moaning in pain, but she was decidedly unconscious. Charcoal then moved onto Ross and his thrown brothers, waking them up one by one. Come on boys, I found the armory. Grab some gear and let's get moving. No time for a nap, Admiral, I need you to get up. Ross clutched his bandaged head only to find it bleeding once more from the impact. He called for a medic from the 5th Company to help him change the dressing. I'm never setting foot off my Star Destroyer again. Ross grumbled as he massaged his calf. After a few minutes of rest, he followed the freed clones to grab a weapon from the armor. He looked over to Ciri's unconscious form. That was at least 3 times Ciri had personally saved his life now, and it was time to return the favor. Settling for a simple heavy pistol, Ross stuck it in its holster and walked over to Ciri. He grunted as he lifted her onto his shoulders once more. King versus Ventress. Ventress groaned as King pressed his Vibrochnives and her lightsabers closer and closer to her chest. Their difference in size meant a difference in strength. King was nearly a full head taller than her, and he was also a male in peak physical condition. Their difference in upper body strength was something that Ventress could not ignore. But her body was empowered by the dark side. So at the very least, she was faster than King. Or at least, she should have been faster. King executed his attacks at speeds that no normal human should be capable of. Unlike a lightsaber, tapping yourself with the blade of the broken wouldn't harm you, and King made full use of that fact, flourishing his knives over the backs of his hands, and attacking in a way that Ventress could hardly predict. She tried her best to use her reach advantage, but King's reflexes made him dodge her blades almost instinctively as he closed back in. Ventress had begun to realize her folly. Even after being explicitly warned by Count Dooku that Naruto's lieutenants were not to be underestimated, she had done so regardless. King was an utter monster of an opponent, the likes of which she had never seen in a clone. She had begun to think that this clone was no mere clone. After she, "UI, how are you this skilled at melee combat? There's no way a run-of-the-mill clone could ever achieve what you have here." "You're right. I suppose it's because I'm no run-of-the-mill clone." King smiled slightly after Ventress seemed to figure it out. "So you're a commando, then? Strange, your armor certainly doesn't look like the others I've killed." King's smile fell and he felt a twinge of anger for his fallen brothers, but he kept a stern face. "I washed out of the program and was placed with the regular forces. I suppose ex-commando is what you should call me," King explained, but Ventress didn't seem to like that. "TCH, now you're just mocking me. There's no way you washed out with these skills." Ventress ended the pause in their little fight and went on the attack, but King parried every strike and turned her advance back on her. "You're right, I didn't fail. I left by choice." Ventress raised an eyebrow that as she raised her saber to defend. "When my pod brother was removed from the program, I decided I didn't want to be a commando anymore. I failed on purpose, so I could get assigned alongside Blitz. It took longer than I'd liked." "Why is that?" Ventress asked. "Because I was the #1 ranked commando under Calbir. Perfect scores on every simulation. My nickname is King for a reason," King said, remembering his training fondly and only just masquerading his pride. Ventress began to understand. His natural ability, combined with outstanding marks in his sparring matches with Jedi Masters, had created a rather unique being. She found it actually a bit of a shame he wasn't force sensitive. That explains it. "Still, you're still no match for a Sith." Ventress exploited King's reminiscing and pushed out with the force. King was slammed into a control panel, but he quickly rolled off and recovered in time to see Ventress charging at him. She was too fast and too close, but her blade missed its mark and only skimmed the side of his face. Not willing to lose the exchange, King drew even closer and slammed his vibro knife into Ventress's left forearm. The Dathomirian screamed in pain, reeling back and clutching her impaled arm. She removed the blade and threw it back at King with her free hand. King only caught it and wiped the blood off on his shoulder pad. Ventress ignited both her lightsabers once again and went on the attack, but found that her injury was simply too much, and her left side was now vulnerable. King knocked both her sabers into the air, and delivered a barrage of kicks to her torso, the last one launching her into a wall panel. She recovered just in time to dodge King's overhead strike, and kicked him in his ribs. Putting away her second saber, Ventress leapt towards the prone clone and struck with one blade, but King rolled and backflipped onto his feet out of harm's way. He launched a cadence of strikes that he had learned from Ciri, and managed to disarm his crippled opponent. Ventress, backed into a corner, drew her second lightsaber, and struck with all her might. King parried, but the blow was too powerful, and he stumbled briefly. The opening was enough for Ventress to rush for her other blade. Grabbing it, Ventress briefly looked back at King. Knowing that she was no longer a match for him without her left arm, she took the only other option and sprinted for the door. King briefly considered following her, but decided to accept his small victory and sheathed his Vibrochnives. Hangar Bay top floor. Naruto was currently fighting his way through the top level of the hangar bay to cut the magnetic locks, which were massive. Through his battle meditation, he could feel down below that quite a few of his men were beginning to falter. Even with his indirect support, the difference in numbers was too great for some, and many others were barely holding on. Not only that, he could feel Ciri's life force slowly fading through the force. At various moments, he could even feel a painful heat on his chest and leg, but he also felt an intense warmness at times. He had no idea what it meant, but Naruto did his best to ignore it as he marched through the wreckage of droids, but he was suddenly accosted by a flying red lightsaber and forced to drop to the ground. Naruto followed the saber back to a group of 3 hooded individuals in black robes. As they pulled back their cloaks, Naruto saw 2 humans, a middle-aged man and a girl around his age with a bob cut. He couldn't help noticing she was extremely cute, despite the red glow of her lightsaber poisoning her. Alongside them was a heavily tattooed Zabrak male in serious need of a horn trimming. 3-on-1, eh? Naruto thought. They must have been waiting for him to be backed into using battle meditation, intent on exploiting his relative weakness. It was clever. Many Jedi had run into Dooku's dark acolytes over the course of the war, including he. They weren't that impressive. Perhaps the best of them, like Ventress, were on par with your average Jedi Knight, but most of them were on the level of a Padawan with limited experience. With his battle meditation hindering him, this matchup could prove deadly. Naruto knew that letting them set the pace of the battle would prove costly, so he decided strike first, clashing with the girl, and putting her on the defensive with a brief flurry. The Zabrak moved to defend her and pushed Naruto's momentum back at him. Naruto quickly changed his target, noting that the Zabrak strikes were much more powerful. This all changed when the human man made his debut, equipped with the saber staff. Naruto could tell just from their stances and strikes that the 2 men were far superior to the girl in combat. She was likely a newer recruit. Naruto hoped he could use that by focusing her down first. As Naruto began his next cadence, the Zabrak took notice of their opponent's focus on their newest member. He took the opportunity to press his attack on Naruto, trying to get a clean hit in, but the blonde deflected every strike. Whatever their plan had been, it was now down the drain. As her senior, he took the opportunity to exert dominance, and also to stretch Naruto's focus further. Asha, you're no match for this man. Why don't you head below and take care of his friends? I'm sure he'd hate that very much. The girl simply shrugged her shoulders and leapt over the railing. Naruto immediately snarled at the underhanded tactic, but knew that following her meant they would follow him, and trying to maintain battle meditation while being facing 3 Sith, and shot at by thousands of droids, was a recipe for 100% pure death. Naruto's thoughts were in a jumble. He felt that familiar stress come back onto his shoulders tenfold. He closed his eyes to clear his mind as he deflected yet another power attack from the Zabrak, and he felt his focus fading and the battle meditation growing weaker. He couldn't stop meditating for even a moment, otherwise his friends, his brothers, would die. But if he couldn't maintain his focus on the battle, he would too. Naruto reached out with the force, calling for whatever aid it might give him, but nothing more came. In the moment, with his comrades' lives on the line, Naruto made a deal hoped he wouldn't regret as he felt a sinister energy flood his system. At first, he felt calm, at peace. But then the darkness of the energy began to overtake him. Hatred boiled within his core for the first time in over a decade as he opened his eyes, and in the place of the sky blue marbles were red slits. First floor. With the power of Naruto's battle meditation still flowing through them, the 497th had begun a vicious counterattack in an effort to make their way back into the halls to rendezvous with Ross and Siri. Fox and Storm led the vanguard and were destroying dozens of droids by the second. Their progress ground to a halt when a woman in black robes dropped down in front of them. "It's a dark Jedi," Storm noted as Fox nodded. The 2 quickly pointed their blasters at her and fired away. The acolyte went on the attack, dodging the incoming blaster fire, as Fox and Storm quickly decided to throw away their blasters. She had gotten too close to counter with blasters. Fox jumped back, dodging her first strike, and Storm sidestepped before he delivered a backfist punch to the side of her head. Fox saw an opening and quickly kicked the acolyte, sending her to the ground. The angry acolyte quickly stood up and used force push to throw the 2 back. "Die," she shouted in anger as she came in for a strike against Fox, who rolled out of the way before swiping her legs with his long-barreled DC-15A, causing her to fall to the ground. But she quickly launched herself off the ground and ran forward, using her legs to deliver a kick at Storm, but she found her attack blocked by something solid and metal. She looked to see that Storm had employed a common riot baton to defend himself. Fox snarled and spat. He looked around to see anything he could use as an advantage. He could have used some vibratic weapons right about now. His eyes ventured up and he saw something that made him smirk. The acolyte saw the smirk and chuckled. "What are you smirking for? Not afraid to die?" She questioned him as Fox chuckled once more. "We're clones bred for combat. Would kind of defeat the purpose if we were afraid of dying," Fox countered. The acolyte stopped laughing and narrowed her eyes. However, she was caught off guard as she felt a great amount of pain in her back. Looking behind, she saw a 3rd different clone with his vibro wrist blade impaled into her back, and no sooner did she go into a panicked rage, as she realized that her lung had been punctured. How had he snuck up on him? She should have sensed him through the force. She pulled forward, yanking the blade out in the process, and turned around with great speed. The clone severed the arm of the clone. Fang shouted as his arm was severed. Completely exposed, Storm seized the acolyte to try and give Fox an opening, but she thrashed about with her lightsaber, trying to get at him. Finally, something seemed to hit through, and Storm felt a burning sensation in his leg. It too had been severed. Unable to balance himself, Storm fell to the ground but took the girl with him. Fox picked up Storm's baton and swung his hardest. The woman tried to lift her lightsaber up to block, but it was too late, and the baton smashed into her forearm, breaking it instantly and causing the acolyte to release the lightsaber, which Fox quickly caught in midair, as the acolyte rose to her feet, gripping her arm to try and numb the pain. But the moment she turned back around, her head was severed from his body, thanks to Fox. Talk about costing you an arm and a leg. Fang joked, coughing between laughs. Storm groaned at the terrible humor and writhed for a moment, slowly crawling his way to Fang. He lifted his arm up and slugged him as hard as he could. "You're such an asshole, Fang." Second floor. Naruto focused hard to keep his emotions in check as the rage of Kurama flowed through him. It was an option he had no choice but to take. If he hadn't, either he or all of his men would have died. With every saber strike, the orange energy emanating from his body would twist and swirl, and the gusts of wind were intense enough to knock the two acolytes back. They both were slightly shaking at the feeling they were getting. The amount of hatred they felt from the blonde Jedi was immense. It was far greater than anything they had felt, even from Dooku. However, they were broken out of their thoughts as the blonde, with great speed, went back on the attack. One of the acolytes raised his saber to defend himself. When Naruto's saber made contact with his, there was so much power behind it that the acolyte screamed in pain. Naruto continued his mad, relentless assault, eventually knocking the weapon out of the acolyte's hands, with the sheer force behind his bone-shattering strikes. Naruto used that moment and delivered a devastating Chomai blow, cutting off the Zabrak's arm. Naruto then kicked him through the railing, falling nearly 100 meters to his death. "What are you?" the other acolyte questioned, having completely succumbed to his fear. He couldn't even move, he didn't even defend himself, for the hatred that Naruto had surrounding him was rooting him in place. Naruto didn't answer, quickly finishing off the man with one swift strike across the chest. Naruto used his foot to roll the man off the catwalk and into the chaos below. Naruto then turned his attention back to the magnetic locks holding the ship in place. In orbit, high above the small planetoid, the Kamino defense fleet jumped out of hyperspace, just outside of the anti-orbital cannons. Shakti stood at the bridge of the flagship as she observed the target before her. "We should probably attempt to make contact with the outpost," Cal recommended as Shakti nodded before Cal moved towards the rear of the bridge to the holotable. "Shouldn't we send in gunships to rescue Naruto and the others?" Ahsoka questioned her. She was brought along to keep her out of further trouble, and it was also less trouble to just invite her. She wasn't taking no for an answer when it came to Naruto. "If we did that, then their fate will be the same as Naruto's forces. They were shot down by something," Shakti responded as Ahsoka nodded. "If they sent the ships now, they would come under heavy fire and would be trapped as well. General, I have a CC-1293 on the line," Cal called out as Shakti nodded as the two Jedis moved to the rear. A hologram of King was waiting for them, and he seemed slightly out of breath. "Everything okay, Commander King?" Shakti questioned as King waved his hand. She noticed that Cal's eyes slightly widened and King returned the same look. The two obviously recognized each other. "Nothing I couldn't handle," King replied as Cal smirked at that. He always knew King was far better cloned than he let on. When King had washed out of the commando program, it didn't make much sense to him. King had talent, but he chose to use that talent to protect his pod brother and others. "What about the anti-orbital cannons? We need to know if we can send in ships." Shakti questioned him as King shook his head. "Forget about sending ships. The general's already secured a hard cell transport for us. I am sending you coordinates where you will carry out a full-scale bombardment," King said urgently as Shakti raised an eyebrow. "A full-scale bombardment? It appears to be a small separatist base," she reasoned, but King shook his head once again. "Not quite. It's a forward assembly for a planned invasion of Kamino. There's a ton of military hardware in the lower levels." Cal furrowed his eyebrows. This was not good news. An invasion of Kamino this early into the war would completely cripple the Republic's war effort. This base is far larger than previously thought, and multiple core ships have been sighted. The amount of droids that are being brought here leads us to believe that an invasion is in the works. You need to destroy it, all of it. King elaborated as Shakti nodded seriously. "Very well, we'll move into position. You have 10 minutes. She ordered as King nodded before the hologram faded away. "Should I send out to the orders?" Cal questioned as Shakti nodded. It was important that they halt separatist efforts here and now. "Cargo receiving area." Ross grunted as he carried a passed-out Siri towards the hangar bay. After all the clones were freed, they made their way to the hangar bays, hoping that Naruto had managed to secure an escape transport. "Cover, fire, and move," Ross muttered as he fired at a few droids in his path before taking cover behind the containers. Peeking over, he managed to take out a few more droids before he resumed his route towards the hangar bay. "Damn droids. Move slower," he cursed as he ran to the next set of containers, missing a few shots on the way. Droids, while dumb and easy to dispatch alone, were very difficult to handle in large numbers. "Come on," Ross said to himself as he saw the entrance to the hangar bay, and the battle that was raging on in there. He gulped at that. He would have to make his way through the light show in the middle that could get him, and Siri killed. Best to just run for it. He thought as he neared the doors before he took a deep breath and made a mad dash towards the transport, while taking cover wherever he could, which wasn't much considering how open the hangar bays were. Run, damn it. Ross thought as he sneered and bore the pain in his lower leg, as he ran as if his life depended on it, which it definitely did. When Ross scanned for an exit strategy, he saw Naruto leading part of the 497th in securing a Techno-Union hard cell class. Hold the line. Naruto shouted as he deflected the incoming fire way back to the droids. He had managed to destroy the locks, and the transport was ready to go, but they were still missing a few, mainly King, Ross, Siri, and a few others. Sir? I see the Admiral. Spears shouted, pointing towards the front as Naruto's jaw nearly dropped. What the hell was that fool doing endangering Siri's life like that? Suppress a fire. Naruto shouted as he quickly charged forward, quickly meeting up with Ross as he kept deflecting fire. Quickly. Get on the transport. Naruto shouted as Ross nodded, thanking him for the cover as he made his way to the transport. With Naruto covering, it was far easier for Ross to make his way onto the landing ramp. We're all on board, time to go, General. Fox shouted, wanting to get out of here as fast as possible. But Naruto refused. Where's King? Don't tell me he's not coming. I'm not leaving without him. Naruto said to himself as he kept on deflecting. The transport was ready to go, and they couldn't wait any longer, but he would not leave anyone behind. They had already lost so many, and he would be damned if they lost any more. Come on. Naruto's eyes darted across the encroaching droid forces. Then, he smirked. There was King riding in on a commandeered stap and blasting his way through the droid lines, who were quite confused at the friendly fire. Coming through. King shouted, knocking some of the droids' heads off with the bottom of his stap as he neared the transport. Naruto began to close the landing ramp, and King launched himself off his stap onto the rising platform. Naruto gripped his hand firmly, making sure his brother was okay. Let's go. Naruto ordered through his transmitter. He's on. With that order, the engines were set to full power, and the ship began its long ascent into the upper atmosphere. What Ventress? Ventress snarled in anger as she scanned the hangar. 2 more dead acolytes. She had seen Nudia's corpse on her way through the holding cells. Right now she was boarding a shuttle in humiliation. It seems that Enid had survived his encounter with Naruto, but he was now missing an arm. The acolyte was muttering something, totally struck by fear and shaking like a leaf. What in the force happened to him? Ventress thought with a frown as she turned around to see a hard cell transport make its way out of the hangar bay. Her fist tightened as she boarded her shuttle before taking off. It would seem she was just in time too, as the Republic fleet began an all-out orbital bombardment. Count Dooku will not be pleased, Ventress muttered to herself. This was a failure that Dooku would not slide. They had lost nearly 1 million droids, not to mention all of the ordnance and the core ships. The invasion force as a whole would be annihilated. Their plans would be delayed severely. However, the most important thought in her mind was her fate. What kind of punishment she would face after the acolytes returned without completing any of their objectives. He was sure that Dooku would be furious. More importantly, Sidious's rage would know no bounds after this, and that made her fear for her life. On board the Renown. After leaving atmosphere, the hard cell was caught in the tractor beam of the Star Destroyer Renown. After the docking procedure was complete, hundreds of clones made their way into the medical bay for triage. But even after all he had been through, Ross Darahan hadn't let go of Siri, much to Naruto's confusion. Oh, you know you can put her down now, right Ross? They'll carry her to a bed. Naruto suggested, but Ross ignored him, looking for a place to put Siri down himself. He finally found an open bed through all the chaos and set her down. He could only wait it out for someone to assess her wounds. The 2 officers sat in awkward silence. It was far too long of a wait until a medical droid had come forward to address her issues, but as soon as it had, Ross stood up out of his chair and got to work firing off a list of her conditions. 2 direct blast wounds, one to the right hamstring, another to the second rib just near the sternum. There's also a fracture in the lower radius, in the wrist area. She's also experienced moderate blood loss and will likely need a transfusion. She and I are both B-positive blood types, take whatever you need from me. Naruto was staring completely dumbfounded at Ross's medical skills. Ross noticed this just as they began drawing his blood. When Zels first signed me up for the Navy, I decided to join the medical corps in an act of defiance. It wasn't until later that I finally transferred to Ox and became part of the regular forces. Naruto was still completely dumbfounded. Zell signed him up for the Navy. When? Why? What? Naruto finally asked. Ross only smiled and shook his head dismissively. Oh, and before I forget, you should probably take a look at my leg. Naruto raised an eyebrow as Ross began rolling up his uniform, revealing a nasty wound on his lower calf. Well, that's what you get for running through the open cargo bay through that much crossfire. At least it's not that serious. Naruto half-heartedly scolded Ross. He couldn't be that upset. Ross had likely saved Siri's life. Oh, this? No, this happened earlier. It's been bothering me for a while now. Ross explained. How much earlier? Naruto asked skeptically. When we were caught in the trap and you told us to make a break for it into the Confederate base. Naruto was shocked once again. Ross had been running through the entire complex, carrying Siri on his back, and fighting a dark acolyte no less, all with a bum leg. And he did it all for Siri. Renowned, command bridge. As Naruto was indisposed watching over Siri, King had been the one to pick up the slack in the meantime. He made his way onto the bridge to give the official report to Shakti. After a brief moment of review, she and Ahsoka left the bridge to visit Naruto and make sure that he wasn't overexerting himself as usual. Left on the bridge alone, King turned his attention back to the only other person on the bridge, Sergeant Cal Scrata. With a brief nod, King greeted a man he hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. Marshal Commander King. The drill sergeant nodded back. There was a brief silence, but suddenly Cal's arms had wrapped themselves around his former top cadet commando. It's good to see you're doing alright for yourself. Never thought you'd end up commanding an entire legion. How's Blitz, by the way? Nothing like he used to be, Calger. Once he was dropped from the program, his personality did a complete 180. He's so attached to the rules that the others often tease him for it. Really, the little class clown became a stuffy talking head. That personality doesn't suit him at all. How does he even cope? Cal laughed sadly. He'd always liked Blitz's antics, and he was a capable clone, and had always been a terrific leader. He just wasn't commando material. Probably the same way I did when I'd first learned you'd washed out. He just suffers through it for the sake of others. King said, briefly remembering the month he'd spent in total anguish without his pod brother by his side. Once you went and quit on me to join him in the regular forces, I always thought he'd be the one that would end up leading you. You were a terrible squad captain. Cal teased. To be honest, I usually leave all of the 497 seconds management to him. I'm a fighter, not a leader. The general seems to have the best of both worlds. King's comment got Cal's attention immediately. Ah, yes, this Uzumaki fellow, right? I've heard a bit about him. He's got a strange name, almost seems Mandalorian. He seems to be quite the impressive Jedi. Everybody's always talking about General Uzumaki this or General Uzumaki that. I'd actually like to get to know a bit more about him. Care to spill the beans? Cal inquired, eager to know more. Well, at first I only knew him as the boss's boss on Geonosis, but once I took over the 497th and met him in person King scoffed briefly, but couldn't help but turn it into a full chuckle, as he made an unprecedented connection, and immediately realizing why he got along with Naruto so well. Well, he treats us pretty much exactly like you did. King began to tell the story, from the beginning. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.